everything we do kind of goes back to that mission statement. And the idea being, do our students epitomize something that goes above and beyond, either academically, emotionally, or socially? So we look for nominations. We look for them from any source in the building. So actually, Mr. DeSoto's class this past Monday had the opportunity, but actually had offered the opportunity to join our North Greenbush seniors. As you might know, we have a relationship with North Greenbush seniors that meet each Monday down at Town Hall. Had offered his class to go down and kind of share some stories, share some things they had written, fiction and nonfiction, and really that was kind of a nice chance for our seniors to see what our kids are doing. Because again, a lot of times I go down there to feature what the building is doing, but to see our kids in action. So again, they brought their pieces down. Could not have been more cordial. The seniors wrote me later on and it said that this group was so positive. They felt very welcomed by you, the fact that you were very nice at introducing yourselves and being very positive representatives of our school community. So again, truly that's above and beyond. That represents our mission statement better than anything. So you guys are being royally recognized. So again, congratulations, Mr. Soto's class. Nicely done. Mr. Soto, do you want to add anything to that, please?
I think you said it all. That was perfect. Thank you so much.
Wow. Speechless.
Wonderful. No, they were really impressed. They talked about how wonderful their writing was, the science fiction, the research. We had a great conversation. We tried raffling off a nice Italian gift basket with a box of Barilla pasta, pesto, and roasted red peppers for 50 cents a ticket. So hopefully we were also able to raise some money for the North Greenbush seniors.
Win-win. So, and again, students want to thank you also for coming out, because again, at 7 o'clock on a Thursday night, and family, certainly it's not the most easy thing to do, and the fact that you came out with your children shows everything, what makes them so special. So, in our ceremonial fashion, board members, I'll ask you to stand up, if that's okay.
Yep.
And Mr. DeSoto, if you don't mind, I'll hand you the certificates.
No problem.
And those students that are not present tonight, that are not able to be here, we'll recognize them on the morning announcements in the morning TV program tomorrow morning. So again, and students, if you've been through this before, one of your byproduct prizes is that you get to walk of fame and shake over our hands, and then actually proceed over to the screen for our great picture. So, excellent.
All right. Carter, no. Houseponder, no. Andrew, no. No. Kate Galuli. Good job. Sierra, no. Lacey, no. Cody, no. Bryn Mahoney. How we end up with the fist bump. Yes. Good job. No. Bailey McCabe. Jackson Murray. Good job. Alina Murtaugh. Nice job. Mackenzie Terry. Hi. And I believe that's it.
Hey, that's so solid. Not too bad. So nice job, folks. Thank you. So students, if you don't mind, I'll ask you to go over to the screen with Mr. DeSoto for a photo, if that's all right. So now make Twitter news in a matter of seconds. Families, this is a great photo op too. If you wish, no pressure. But this will be on Twitter. 1, 2. Oh, let me go first. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're all right.
No, you go first, please.
No, I'm already done.
Sure? No, okay. Got a little tense there. All right, good. Okay. Oh, my turn? Excellent.
I don't even have my camera out. Smile.
Do you need a shirt?
Jeez.
Okay, good. All right, excellent. This is perfect now. 1, 2, 3. Everybody's looking at me. That's good. All right. Nicely done, folks. Thank you. And again, as a side product of that too, I will say the seniors did compliment both the behavior, but also again the writing. They were amazed at the volume of writing that came out, both fiction and nonfiction pieces, and that's pretty impressive to come from a population that doesn't get to see our school all the time. So nicely done, folks.
And now you guys are going to come up and talk about the tax code, I think, right?
Yeah. You're all welcome to stay, or you can all leave if you'd like. Whatever you'd like to do.
They run as fast as they can. You're welcome to stay.
But if you're in the mood for budget, this is the place.
The budget's always
Talking
a
budget.
good topic.
It's exciting stuff.
It's good stuff.
Good night. Thanks.
Okay. 1.4, approval of minutes of the previous meetings. We've only had one, March 21st, 2019. I need somebody to make a motion.
Moved.
In a second.
Second.
And I believe Kathy had a couple edits that she sent out to...
Edits to the minutes?
No.
No.
No?
It's to the policy. It's the
Oh,
policy.
policy. Excuse me.
Yep.
Any questions or discussion then?
No.
No. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All those against? 1.5, acceptance of financial reports. We only have one, internal claims auditor's report for February and March 2019. We're a little off cycle this month, so we'll probably have two next month.
Mhm.
What I heard. Yeah. I need somebody to make a motion.
Moved.
Second. Nobody do already?
Okay. Questions or discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Okay. Moving right along, 1.6, visitors and communication. Communications to the board. We didn't have anything that we can talk about. And anything else?
Nothing.
No? Opportunity for the public to be heard. Has anybody signed up?
There is not.
Okay. Will be an opportunity later. 2.0, reports to the Board of Education. Looks like we have a couple. You want to talk about?
Sure. As you'll see on the agenda, it actually has two of our coordinators, actually, and two positions actually that are very different, but that's why I wanted them to come out. As you know, one of our board goals this year was to kind of have the coordinator roles report out to us of what they're up to. So CSE, district data. So in this case, we have athletics and also our co-curriculum coordinator positions reporting out, and that's held by Mr. DeSoto and Mrs. Madelo. The reason I'll have them report out to you as well, kind of what they've been up to, is that is a new position, or I should say a reconfigured position that we did this year as part of our kind of advancing the times. The previous position was just called reading coordinator, and it was kind of relegated just to reading, but we actually split the positions here so that it could really cover all core areas and more than just kind of the quote-unquote reading area in the book room. So I'll have both those guys speak on behalf of that, and also Dan will speak on behalf of athletics too, of kind of what they've been up to. So Mr. DeSoto, we'll start with you with athletics, then we'll proceed to both of you guys with the curricular things.
Welcome again. Thank you for having me. So in terms of athletics, the baseball and softball season is underway. The first game of the season, of course, was rained out on Tuesday. That was moved quickly to May 6th as a makeup date. First home game of the season were tonight, so softball actually just won 12-4, and baseball was down at Twin Town, and they lost 9-1. Wicked smart. They're still waiting on some of the items to arrive, so the estimated time for delivery will be between Monday and Friday. So hopefully not Friday since we're not here. So hopefully at some point between Monday and Thursday. And as always, Facebook and Twitter are the easiest way to know what's happening in the world of sports. I just updated the schedules and the updates from the baseball and softball game. So really, other than that, not a whole ton happening. We only have two sports, so baseball and softball. Not like another school where I had 15 sports to talk about, so just two. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? No? Okay, good. Thank you.
So now,
And now I think we'll call on...
You can go first if you want. Ladies first. I'll be a gentleman. Thanks, scholars.
So as the curriculum coordinator, I'm focusing on ELA and social studies this year. So as far as ELA, I could go through the year, so I kind of I haven't been here yet, so I thought I would just tell you a few things I've done throughout the year. So I was attending PLCs at the beginning of the year. just to check in and discuss ELA needs in the classroom. Most of the teachers were talking a lot about guided reading in the classroom, which is when we pull the small groups to learn about books. So a lot of them were talking about ways to, like, organizational tools to keep track of each reader in their group, and so that they would have kind of something to look back on when they go to grade for a report card, especially in the report card where we don't do an assessment and we need to see if they've grown levels. So I kind of came up with some different forms they could use and kind of gave them lots of options so that whatever organizational system would work best for them. And everybody kind of chose their favorite. So that was something that we did at the beginning of the year just to get organized for the year. I also created an assessment sheet for our Fountas and Pinnell kits. We had these kind of big long ones and they were kind of not being kept up. So I created kind of a shorter one so that you can see from kindergarten to 6th grade the progress of each student, and that's going to be kept in their file. I helped with our new book room. We had to organize and level all of our new inventory this year. So I helped do that, and it looks beautiful in there now, so we had to move it because of the new addition. So the teacher aides did a lot of the work. I just kind of helped organize and finish up the project. My biggest project of the year for ELA has been our book club. So we started a professional book club based on the newest Fountas and Pinnell guided reading text. So that's our assessment group. They put out a lot of textbooks, and Dr. Yotis was actually using one with one of her SAGE classes that she said was really beneficial. So we took a look at it. A lot of teachers signed up and volunteered to be part of the book club. It was all based on if you wanted to join, and we meet once a week after school to discuss a chapter a week. So what I do is I make slides of kind of the important points from each chapter. We all get together, we discuss, and then we kind of take what we're learning and trying to apply it in the classroom. We've also tried out a couple of things. Our Fountas and Pinnell assessment was updated this year, so they provided forms with, it's almost like pretend students that they show you how they would do the assessment, and we use those to decide if you had the student in your class, what would you do with this assessment? How would you use that information to inform how you would teach the kids in the class? So we all did an exercise on that. And we're actually almost done with the book. We have a couple of chapters left, so we're just going to have one more meeting at the end in May, right after our big break. So everyone's going to kind of finish up the book. But it's been really great. We have really great discussions, and all the teachers are really involved. And then anyone who couldn't kind of commit to an after school, we have those slides that I created, so we're able to share those out with everyone afterwards, so that everyone can still access the information that we're discussing. So that's been really great. It's been really fun to talk with everybody about reading. Guided reading's like our big push in the classroom, so it's been good for everybody to kind of brush up on skills and think about new things they can do. For social studies, we've really been looking at the new inquiries that were put out by the state for the new standards. Last year, we had started to delve into them. They come with a lot of resources. We look at them this year, and some of the resources are not accessible anymore, so that's been kind of frustrating. So what I've been trying to do is kind of look for alternative resources. We had a couple of days where teachers got to work together in the library, so I kind of visited each meeting to see where everyone's at. We're all creating a curriculum map of what units you're going to teach for the year, and then we're looking at, are you lacking in resources? Do we need to look for some more? For example, I have like a website that was included on mine that is down now. So you can't, or I think it's paid or something like that, so you can't access it. So I had to find another resource for the same kind of thing. So we're just kind of working on that for each teacher to make sure they feel prepared with the new standards and the new inquiries. Other than that, I think that's kind of like my year in a nutshell for the coordinator position. So,
Any questions?
Yeah, any questions? Good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as you can imagine, Dan has the other half. So again, what's been nice about this position is we kind of split the core areas in two, so it wasn't one person looking over all four, but also that each core area had some attention and not just one particular area. So Dan has been overseeing kind of the math and science realm, but also some other pieces you'll hear that tie into the big T word of the past couple weeks.
So greetings again, board. So this year, one of the things we did was making sure that teachers all have access to the Journeys curriculum online, making sure that students all have accounts so that they can access it at school and at home, working to ensure any of the licenses, like with Math and Focus recently, what are the needs? Is it still going to be a need moving forward? And if it's not, then we can just access all the materials we need now so that we can move on and look in other directions. Recently worked with Dr. Yotis to implement, as Dr. Reardon said, the T word. So we spent a lot of time over the last several months doing the ELA testing with the computers. So obviously last week we started both sessions, finally finished this week with the makeups. So I was able to work with Anthony, our tech person, to install the browsers on both the upstairs computer lab, downstairs computer lab, make sure we troubleshoot any issues that came up. So as of today, all 264 students that tested are completely done, and then the math will take place in a couple weeks. Woo! Recently we had our PARP, pick a reading partner, so over 160 students turned in PARP calendars, so they were given a reading certificate and a free game of bowling as their reward. So, I'll try to keep it short and simple. I know Dr. Reardon, I think in the February meeting, did a quick update too on the curriculum and stuff like that, so I don't want to take too much of your time. It's a Thursday night. I know you guys probably want to get home and watch Grays as usual at 8. So, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, please don't hesitate to contact me. Follow me on Facebook,
Yeah.
Twitter,
We were
GC on Facebook.
definitely happy the testing went through, and I know another teacher was telling me how students had to go in and redo it the next day. They had to redo.
We were very fortunate that, if I may point out, we were able to test in 2 days. So even though they were not 2 consecutive days, whereas some schools just finished, actually, even up till today, we were able to do 1 day, and then we had to take a little break. As you know, we were able to do this in 2 days. So while there was some behind-the-scenes disruption, the students, I think, felt very minimal impact of the frenzy that we were feeling. So
Again, nothing on our end that we can control. Any issue that came up, Dr. Yotis and I that day worked to quarantine all the computers, make sure that they were in a safe location. And then once the end of the day came, we were able to submit them. Kids the next morning came in. If they still had an error, had them log back in, made sure that they got the check mark and they were submitted. And then I just double-checked, triple-checked everything to make sure that all tests were completely secure, confirmed, finished. They had a start time and end time. And today we just double-checked again, or quadruple-checked at this point, to make sure that every student who tested is completely done. So as of this morning, ELA has 0 students that need to finish. So. And whatever we're seeing on our end for in progress is going to be for 5th grade, since they'll be doing math on the computer.
Did we have any students, or all the students, were they really stressed over the test? Did they seem to go with the flow? I mean, I'm reading all this stuff online on how kids are getting so stressed out over this, and did we have incidences of that, or how did it seem to go for the kids?
I can't speak for every student. I think in my homeroom I don't necessarily see too many students stressed out. I have a couple kids here. I don't know if it was too bad. Mackenzie, were you really stressed out? No. I mean, it's testing. I don't think it's ever anything. Obviously, media doesn't portray anything in a positive light anymore. So no matter what, it's always going to be viewed as negative, until it's over. So
I think it just has that
it is.
stigma of the states making them do it, and that makes them even angrier. But even back when you guys were in school, there were always the state testing on grades 3, 5. It's always been there. It's just, it's a little different now, but it's always been required. So.
And I think the framing of how it's been done has been softened exponentially from when we were students, where it was presented as you better do well in this assessment. It could affect your this, it could affect your high school placement. I think we've been very cognizant of being it's just another day, take the test, and let's move on. Let's not, But teachers, not to throw that back. I mean, did you see any mass cases of?
I don't know about you guys. I feel like I don't mention it all year long because I don't want it to be a stressful thing. And then as soon as I mention it, they already have like an idea in their head, like, oh, the state test is this year. And I'm like, how did you hear about it already? So I think it does come from the media and like we talked about at home. But I try to make it really fun. Like I bring in, we get to have gum today, and we get to do this today. And I think that kind of brought it all down. And I didn't have anybody like freaking out or anything.
I agree. I think it's how you present it. I probably shouldn't say this to the board, but I told them no one's going to go back and ask you how you did on your 4th grade ELA state test. I can't remember what I did.
This is true.
I'm going to ask
Kristen and I.
Now we are.
That's right. First day.
I can't remember if I even took it. We bring a speaker in this hallway the day of the test. So Kristen plays from her phone, and the little speaker goes, the kids like it, even the younger kids, like the next day when we
Dancing
didn't
down
have it
the
going.
hallway.
Although younger kids were like, where's the music?
We just tell them it's just a snapshot another day. Like, if we see you all year round, we probably know what you're going to get on the test. Just do your best. You know, we have BA, we have this, we have so many things to look at. It's just one of those things.
Well, thanks for all you do to make it work, so good luck in the next round.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ada, thanks.
Okay. 2.2, District Superintendent Program Report. I think this is going to be the budget.
It is. Thank you for staying.
Can't wait.
And I'll save some other items for post-budget, but of course there's some other exciting things going on in the district too.
Awesome.
So, actually, I'll draw your attention to any audience members if you have any questions. I know we're kind of picking up at the final leg, but if you've missed any pieces, would anyone like a handout? Well, I'll bring them with me. I'm sorry, in case anyone decides to. So we'll put some on the screen here too. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we'll get this set up. So actually, on a positive note, this is actually, I'm very excited by this budget because it reflects the short and the long term.
No, I mean, like,
I can do 7:30.
Okay.
You can do 7:30 if someone else can do 7:30.
So, and once again, any questions, or if I'm going too fast, or if I'm picking up with an assumption that the first part of the presentation, that we've done over the past couple months is ingrained, let me know. So please, I'll make some assumptions tonight, but if there's anything I'm too assumptive about, please let me know. So, very pleased to bring to our final budget tonight, and kind of budget presentation for you to consider, as well as what I would recommend we put on the ballot tonight. And basically, I kind of want to take you through how we've gotten where we are. So again, I see this very positive outlook, and also I just want to accentuate too. You'll see this is a big theme of mine tonight. I should say of the district is this is not just about the 1920 school year, but this budget reflects the school years for the next 3 to 5 years, because that's one piece, as you'll notice, and you'll see me accentuate this a lot. If you follow in these schools in local media, you see that there's been some schools that have been hit fiscally very hard. So again, the idea that the recession is over, I don't think is the case. And you're seeing schools that are either making massive cuts or they're reducing. And that's one thing that we always made a promise to the board, to you, is that we, again, wanted to always make a sustainable budget, one that wasn't a year of adding and then a year of subtracting, or a year of everything being very plush, and the next year saying, oh, well, there's doom and gloom. So that's why we've always tried to present this budget in a very a straightforward fashion, but also one that's not reactionary, but also one that is realistic for the long term. So again, I'm very proud to present that to you tonight and kind of where we're at. So again, that mission statement we talked about, Belle and I, as I keep saying, it's always from the same angle too, Belle. I think there's like tracks in the carpet, right, when I always stand here and say often we meet. So as the weeks go on, once the budget's passed, Belle and I triple our meeting intake, and that's great for me at least, and I hope for you too, Belle, so thank you. But basically everything kind of goes back to this mission statement, the idea of everything, every dollar we spend and our budget can relate back to this mission statement, and also with that, our board goals and our areas of focus. So meaning, is everything that we're doing, besides things like heat and gas and lights and things like that, does it relate back to one of these things, and does it have a purpose? And if the answer is yes, then it's there, and if it's not, we revisit that and look at maybe why it's there. So again, there's a purpose behind why we set these goals, and for the board, I want to thank you, because those areas of focus really drive 99% of what we do: engaging students, monitor and assess the success of first year pre-K, continue to examine special education, and to examine school community demographics and the best needs of all students. So I like that line too for bullet number 3 in the areas of focus: all students, so not just one faction. We also always made a promise that besides thinking the long term, we would never put forth a budget to you that was built on the back of one component of the program. So meaning, we would never build a pre-K on the back of the middle school schedule, or we'd never build an elementary small class on the back of a large 6th grade class. The budget represents a pre-K through 8 model, and it's comprehensive and it's sustainable. So that's a piece that, again, is very challenging, but I'm very proud of what we put forward, because, again, it is work, but it reflects that work, and it's well worth the effort. So what has changed since our last board meeting? And actually, that's basically the budget was passed on Sunday, March 31st. You might recall this was kind of a very, this budget year was not as dramatic as previous budget years. It was passed, and I say Sunday, I think you could almost argue it was passed in the early morning, meaning like, in the 10, 11 a.m. It wasn't one of those midnight, the sessions going through. It pretty much was passed, and I think some things still need to be tidied up for June, like some policy pieces. But budget-wise, things are pretty much in place. So that was a good thing. It meant that we were able to kind of come together and give you a final outlook of what that meant. The only bad news of that was, again, like everything else, we kind of get those runs as soon as the budget's finished. We wait for our assembly people, so John McDonald sends us the runs that are associated with his district. So we kind of get those charts, and we kind of get very excited. So if I may, I always kind of bring a key. So I was, before I left on Friday, what they do is if I may just take you through this little journey, they take down the previous run that was sent. I put that on cardstock so I would be able to delineate the difference. And then they put the new run up. So basically, the reason we print this is because this is what I presented to you back in February and March. And then this was then what was sent out sometime late in the afternoon on Sunday. So it gives us a chance to kind of compare what changed. And I say that for a reason because while, as you can see, if you were to look at this, the new one, okay, so the one that came out, state aid increased from $60,000 to $68,500. However, so you could say, wow, that's great. We made an extra $8,000. So remember we said we had a budget gap about $65,000. Oh, we have an extra $8,000 in the budget. Isn't that great? Well, again, true spendable aid was about $3,000 because when you compared both, as much as our foundation aid went up, our spendable aid went down by $10,000, if that makes sense. So, for example, in one line, in the previous run, we were getting $40,000, what's called high-cost aid. In the new run, we were getting $30,000, but we were increased in our foundation aid, and we were increased a little bit in our BOCES aid. So it's kind of like one went up, one went down. So in the end, what could we spend was another $3,000. And again, that's a true spendable amount. So again, it's a little bit of a shell game because if you were to take this run and throw it out in the garbage, you'd say, oh, $8,000, that's great. But we built that first budget based on this, which meant, okay, we're getting $40,000 in spendable aid, but that formula is, the governors are messing around with the BOCES aid and the idea of putting a cap on what you can get in your spendable pieces. So that's where I think you saw that reflected was, okay, you were going to get $40,000, and actually at university, I did do an analysis of our local schools. Everybody lost money in that area. So basically, you were hit with almost a little bit of a penalty for your high cost aid. So every school lost money in that category. Now, some schools like Schenectady, Troy, and Albany saw such an increase in foundation aid, it was washed out. No big deal. For someone like us, you lose $10,000, you make $8,000, and you make a few $100 here and there. I mean, some line items literally went up by a couple $100. One went up, I think, $86. So in the end, it adds up to about $3,000 in more usable aids to our last budget. So again, and that's not a knock at the budget. It just shows that small schools aren't always the priority, and also what can you really spend. And the reason I accentuate that, and sorry to really make this point, is that you can see why really analyzing each line item is so crucial, because if you just use that bottom line of, oh great, 8,000 more, but it's not a true 8,000, and that's when I hate to blame, but I think that's when you see schools get into issues of, oh, we really ran short this year. We thought we were going to get X, but we got Y. We really need to look at what you're supposed to get, and also budget conservatively, because as these sheets show, that's not necessarily the aid you're going to get. As you recall from other presentations, the aid doesn't arrive July 1st. It arrives in installments over the course of the year. So just because it says 68, it doesn't mean you might get that at the end of the year. It might total less because if the population were to drop or something would happen at the government level. So again, it's always important to plan conservatively, especially when you see runs like that change. So long story longer, we saw a $3,000 increase of spendable aid. And please, I'm getting too wound or excited, let me know. Please, any questions, do let me know. But that's why we go each line item and compare. And it's really, as people like come out and some people do this with sports, it's kind of like a little draft to kind of see where, what's going up, what's going down. It's kind of a rush. It's good. So, fixed costs, all right? So we look at kind of our costs and kind of where we're going. So this is kind of some slides that might look familiar. So these are things that we know that we have to build in. This must be so fascinating to you too, by the way. You have such patience. Thank you.
It really does.
You are a great audience member.
Glazed over already.
Really, you're awesome. Obviously, raises, health insurance, prescription drug increases, that's retirement. That's all things we build in. As you know, we had those predicted last time, what that would cost. The 2.52 tax levy rule, the governor and the state legislature we need to stop saying the 2% tax levy. That's really a misnomer. It's not a 2% tax cap. It's a formula that represents an idea of 2%, but it's not a 2% cap. So in this case, it's a formula based on growth, based on population, and when you put it into this basically very fixed formula, it spits out what you can ultimately levy. So that's why you see some schools that can levy 3.87, some that can levy 0.65. So we can, based on the tax levy rule, we can take that 2% out, because that's kind of a misnomer to throw back from about 8-9 years ago. We can levy 2.52, which is actually an additional $1,033,921. So again, that's the exact number. I was rounding to 134, but that's the exact one. So we can levy no more than that. Now, obviously, you could levy less, but then, again, it reduces your foundation. It also would reduce that amount that you can take in additional taxes. So how do we make that budget? Okay, open door needs, everything I just mentioned, retirement costs, Social Security, health insurance, all those pieces that you need to have, they're not negotiables. Recognizing and adding restoring previously cut program that is sustainable for the long term. You'll see with that, the restoring previously cut programming that's sustainable, meaning when Belle and I sit down, it's very tempting at times to look and say, well, you know, we hear, again, everybody, of course, has lots of things they would love if they have their wish list. You know, wouldn't it be great to add, again, I'll say it's like a third section of X grade level. And I say X grade level because now that we used to keep saying, sorry, Darcy, I'm pointing to you,
okay.
just because you're also right here in the trajectory. You know, the large class size, that large class size is not so large anymore because our ones coming up are not small. So there's not 27 as compared to 18. It's 26, 27, 28 as compared to 25, 26. And we're that way across the board. In fact, our 8th grade class is the last cohort leaving in the 30s. And you'll see this comes up later. You know, we're graduating kids now in the 50s. You know, so again, that's a huge piece. So can we add something and not have it have to go away the next year? So it's very tempting to say, oh, if we only just squeeze a little bit out, we can maybe add a third section. That'll make some parents happy and we'll reduce class size to 18, 19. It's not sustainable, though. We have to cut it at some point, if not the next year, or almost the year after. So that's why we look at what do we do that becomes sustainable. And of course, the mission statement and goals, again, does it fit into our focus, or are we adding things that are just, you know, capricious? Does it fit into what we want to accomplish, or is it just something we think would be fun? And of course, fiscal safety and responsibility district. One of the things that I know that Belle and I actually the board actually are most proud of is that as a district, the fact when we get that fiscal stress score. Now again, there's some factors that go into that, you know, in terms of capital projects and things like that. But I'm very proud that we have. No matter what that number, there's a 0 to 100 number that will come out in the summer. Even if that number goes up, I'm proud that we are a district that is not has been audited for the past 4 years, and we have shown no susceptibility to fiscal stress. Meaning we're not anywhere in a danger zone. We're not borrowing from fund balance. We're not banking on something that's not going to happen. We're not using aid that's going to disappear or grant. We are fiscally sound, and the point is, again, for a small school to be fiscally sound long term is crucial because without the fiscal sound, you're now in a very dangerous spot. So again, that's something we're very proud of. Because again, it's not as glamorous, but again, to be fiscally solvent to looking out 3 to 5 years is very exciting. And pre-K 1 classroom. So again, we looked at that. Now also, as you recall, the board, when we put the addition on, that does have room for 2 classes. And of course, the initial census showed that there'd be enough for 2. We purposely advertised pre-K from January through as of April 8th. And as of April 8th, we had 18 students. So again, we have 18 students for 1 classroom, so there would not be a need to add that second classroom. Now, certainly you could add the second classroom and have classes of 9, but again, what's fiscally responsible and also what's meeting the needs of our community. So 1 classroom continues to meet the current needs. Now, could we have a waiting list for them? Absolutely, but also we could have students in that group that decide they, from January between now, made other plans. So of course, you know, we're starting to send that information out, invite them to a family meeting, invite them to, of course, you know, the registration process, which last year took place in the summer. We can do this all before the school year ends and do this in May. But again, the 1 classroom will satiate the community, and also budgetarily, we can maintain budgeting for 1 classroom, which again is still a cost we had last year, but without putting ourselves in fiscal danger by adding a second class. So it's again, this budget is based on 1 classroom, but also the need is based on 1 classroom. So that's kind of exciting when that worked out. So, so revenue sources. So where does our money come in? Revenues and expenditures. Okay, so total school tax levy. So again, I showed you what the increase would be from school year to school year. So here's where this kind of the nuts and bolts of our budget. The total school tax levy, that means the revenue from the taxpayer, would be $5,447,841. Use of appropriated fund balance is $156,000, but you notice it's in parentheses because basically this is kind of something we do, and most schools do this. That it's a practice. Is the money is taken out, but it goes right back in. So it's kind of a shell game of it's not. We're not using fund balance. We're budgeting for the use of fund balance, but we put it right back in as soon as the year starts. If that makes sense. So it's kind of it's a way. I'm not sure why. Bella, I don't know if you have any background of why schools kind of take it out and put it right back in. It's just kind of a way.
Just like you're saying, it's all a shell game.
It's a shell game. I mean, it's almost like it's coming out, but it's going back in. But it's also, we can't go above 4% on our fund balance. So it's kind of like it comes, the 156 takes it down, then we put it right back in to make it 4%. So it's an in-out kind of game, but it doesn't count as really, we put it as a revenue just to be transparent. So total state aid is $3,157,866, and you'll see what that asterisk means. This one I'm very excited about too. Total services, meaning this is revenue, tuition. That's huge. Okay, North Greenwich Common School District fees, such as transportation. As you know, North Greenwich sends their students up here for special classes. They pay us per class and per teacher for those pieces. Transportation, we make a tremendous amount of revenue based on Little Red transportation. That's a very big portion of our budget. It's about $300-something thousand that's accounted for just by transporting those students. Health services that we provide, again, through St. Jude's. So again, we were able to bill back for some at that time. St. Jude's services, speech, special ed, we're able to bill back for those, and special education. again, meaning aid and pieces that come back there. So total services that we provide, again, mostly through St. Jude's, because it's one private school in the district, is $855,887. And total other is $77,110. You notice that number from last year, I should say, I will tell you, that number did go up because we actually are finding we're very good revenue source. We're generating a pretty decent amount. As you see, that's what was able to close that gap in our building use, meaning our weekend building use, when we rent to groups that are not for profits, or I should say that are level 4s, meaning they're not school groups, but they're outside groups. And also transportation. We have done very well this year in leasing our buses out to private schools. Leasing meaning providing the driver for field trips, St. Jude's, Sacred Heart. Actually, we're looking at some other deals over the course of the summer if we can make that happen. So we've done pretty well at bringing revenue in with things that we already are expensed. We have our buses, we pay for the fuel, we charge an admin fee on top of that. So we're using our current resources to kind of generate some revenue, which is kind of nice. But also, you'll notice I put that star because we plan conservatively as we move forward. So meaning that's what we did and that's what we project this year. But let's just say next year no one else could go on a field trip. We don't. That's why that number might not be the exact number, but we purposely go the low number in revenue projection because if something happened, we wouldn't want to be caught low. So for example, state aid, if you were to add this number, you might say, that doesn't make sense. It says that you could use, 3,257,000. Why only 157? Well, that's accounting for if we lost a student that was in this, maybe was in an outplacement, or if the state didn't give us our full aid. It's just there just in case. So we account on that aid coming in at that, but we plan conservatively so that we're not caught in a spot of we projected this, but this happened. Or again, next year, you see building use late penalties, meaning school taxes. When we pay school taxes, if a taxpayer pays late, we get the penalty. This year, I think we made about $3,000. You'd hate to bank on that $3,000, and next year you made $1,000 because that's $2,000 you have to come up for. So we plan conservatively, but not too much either way. We don't want to pad it, but we also want to be responsible that life can happen. So those are our sources of revenue. And here's where the budget recommendations come into play. So that's basically where our money comes. How do we spend that money? That's a 2.52 school tax levy for the community. And once again, the actual tax rate would vary per township. As we discussed before, Brunswick, North Greenbush, Wynotskill, those rates will vary by the assessor in the local town. So that could be lower or higher, but we're saying a 2.52 levy. What that means at the local township would be obviously up to the local assessor. And that's determined in the summer, late August. Tax revenue, foundation aid, and revenue will result in a total operational budget of $9,797,480. So that represents an increase of $351,172 over the 2018-19 budget. So basically, it's a $9.8 million budget, or roughly rounding up, but that's an increase of $351,172 over last year's budget. And much of that is included are just natural up in costs for raises, retirement costs, health insurance, and also remember we're starting to pay back our capital project too, so we have some our principal and debt on that. So that's an increase, meaning budget to budget, it's going up $351,000. What does that include? Budget's broken down. I'll put these three areas up just so you can see. This is very traditional format that the state asks us to put it in. There's three areas of school finance. It's either administrative, capital, or programming. So everything fits into one of those three categories. So you can see by parentheses we define them. So administrative is basically the people that, the components you use to run the school. Again, I always highlight this because it's very easy to forget these things. Remember, we remember the negatives of times, we remember the positives. That number has consistently gone down. Now, it might go down by a fraction of a decimal, but the point is, you want a budget that is program-centered, because program is what affects students and kids and program and instruction. Okay, that's where you want to see your money. So the lion's share of your budget should be program and not the other two. That's the one that should be going up. The other ones ideally are staying the same or going down if you really are looking for a student-centered budget. So I point out that administrative has gone down over the past 4 years because once again we lost administration. We actually are down 2 full-time people. When the building population has gone up over 100 students, but we've reduced roughly 2 full-time people that were not boots on the ground but were true administrative staff. So that might not be a massive number change, but that portion of the budget has reduced despite our increase in enrollment. I just think that's important to point out to our community. Again, despite their enrollment has increased. Capital is operational plan. That's everything from custodial staff to, again, the capital product construction. That's up, again, but that's because we're starting to pay back our debt on the construction. But again, I say up, and that could be a fraction of a decimal, and that's up from last year. But notice we're talking 10.1, 10.7. Programming, again, is up. And again, that's 79.16. So again, almost 80% of your budget is programming, and that's everything that has to do with quote-unquote school, the things that you care about. Okay, instructional staffing, supplies, textbooks, athletics, anything that our students interface with is there. And the other two obviously reflect the building, the physical plant, and of course, who runs the building. So those pieces I think are important to point out. What additions are included in this budget proposal? So of course, besides the overall, the 3 components, what does that mean? Of course, this includes an increase of library media specialists from 0.8 right now to 0.9, so that was that piece I mentioned about restoration. As you recall, that position was full-time many years ago. It was cut during a deficit to a 0.6 4 years ago. We brought it up 2 years ago to a 0.8. We're able to go to a 0.9. Obviously, would we love to go to a 0.0, 1.0? Absolutely, but that would not be fiscally responsible. It's not something that we would feel comfortable doing this time because, again, we would take to add and then have to reduce and add and reduce. We can comfortably go to 0.9. This will allow increased collaboration by Linda Fakir, who's our current library media specialist, but also will allow middle school access. So our vision is actually to use that role to continue collaboration with the pre-K to 6th or 5th grade groups, but also perhaps to offer a library elective for our middle school. So instead of a library, quote unquote, ending in 6th, to actually offer a library class in the middle school that students could elect to take, possibly period 9, so we'll kind of have some options. So again, a library elective. We have art electives, music electives. We never had a library elective that middle school kids can access after elementary, and that would allow us that flexibility. And also increase a very valuable staff member's time, who does give a lot to our school community, as you know. Raises for contract non-unionized employees, and I put that there because, as you know, custodial staff, secretaries, bus drivers, administration are not bound by a contract. So again, it's just a document they sign each year. But obviously, these people, particularly our custodial secretaries and bus drivers, really do deserve the raises. Okay, and they do deserve a cost of living raise, especially because they do work very hard, and obviously their salaries, are not massive. Where a raise is not impossible to do without a massive impact on the budget. Maintenance of a 1.0 teaching assistant, assigning 3rd and 5th grade classes just to larger class sizes. So again, that's next year's 3rd grade and next year's 5th grade. Because again, our current 2nd grade classes are getting up there. They're about 24, 25. So that's the maintenance of that position we added 3 years ago. Remember, that was to alleviate the size of classes. So we're maintaining that. Now again, it's not required, but obviously that's a piece that we have to maintain. We want to maintain. That's why when we added this years ago, we pointed out that we could maintain this, no problem. It would take some work, but obviously adding a teacher would be something we have to really look at because the cost of a teaching assistant is less expensive, but it's something we can maintain. So we can keep that person and actually have them access students in those 2 grade levels that are quote unquote larger. Maintenance of solid textbook and supply line item. That might not sound as glamorous, but once again, it's very easy to cut supplies and textbooks. But again, they're cut when you can't buy things. And I think students know that and families know that as well. Same with technology. It's one of those things that's a very easy thing to cut, but we won't make a technology purchase. But as all of you know, from any experience looking around, when you don't maintain that, you suddenly have this massive influx of, we have outdated machinery, obsolete machines, and we can't replace them. So we maintain that maintenance plan. As a board, you approved that back in November, a 5-year maintenance plan. So that allows us to keep pace with replacing obsolete machines and bringing in new machines. So we're not ever caught with this kind of need to replace, let's say, 3 classrooms of Chromebooks. We're set to replace 1 or 2 sets each year, and we can do that by maintaining that line item. So once again, the idea of maintenance, not just these massive influxes of expense. So how do we close the budget gap? Because the last time we met, that was a $65,000 gap, so you're probably asking what changed if we only made $3,000 in additional kind of spending money. I keep putting that because, again, business office curriculum restructuring, that's a reduction in administrative staff. Once again, I put that because that was a major piece we reduced years ago that's allowed us, because by not adding, as you can imagine, those positions would have kept accruing raises in salary, so by not having those, that's been one less expense we've had to build in. Management of outplaced students and evaluation of special education programming. So again, evaluation is not meant to be a reductionist word, but it's meant, okay, do our students in district and out of district, are they getting what they need, what we program for? So in this case, I know I mentioned this is not necessarily something that closed a gap, but we actually were able to reduce 1 teacher aide based on need, based purely on need. As an 8th grade class leaves, we had 1 less need for 1 teacher aide. However, as you might have recall mentioning before, we also do have an additional need for a additional bus run because of that. So that's more of a wash, but again, that's just an example of how we analyze what we need and what we'll need in one area. So that's more of kind of a wash. There was some savings with that just by nature of costs. Restructuring of transportation leadership, that's a savings in the district. Those you might not be aware, but Bonnie Cole will be retiring at the end of the school year, but we've reevaluated that position and looked at the, basically we do believe we can manage that in-house with our current leadership, Jim Worthington, who's our head bus driver, who's been a very key role this year, but also in using some consulting hours through an individual who's retiring from a local district who can kind of help us through some of the minutiae of the paperwork, such as bus driver testing, 19A testing, road tests. But for the most part, Jim and I do believe we can handle that leadership without replacing that person as a full-time person. So between Jim's boots on the ground leadership in the morning, starting the buses, getting them going, field trips, this person's consult with us in terms of establishing routes and making sure that we're set, and of course, using internal pieces, we do believe we can do that and have a savings to the district as well. So again, and that opening being there with Bonnie, retiring at the end of the school year. And of course, reallocation of transportation line to reflect account for FCC digital radio expenses. Now again, not as glamorous, but that's not an addition, but actually they are doing away, again, if you're very interested in this, I'd be happy to go on this. The analog radio system that we use is actually declared obsolete. The tower will be eliminated in 2 years in the Helderbergs. So basically you have to go digital with your bus radios, and there's not an option. Once it's gone, it's gone. They're not repairing either. So we have to basically upgrade our entire bus fleet of radios to digital radios, meaning, digital. So basically, we've accounted for that by reallocating some pieces in fuel, and also as part of that savings that we have. But again, it has to be done. So we'll be doing actually a lease to buy option. So rather than purchasing all at once, we'll be leasing for 5 years, but we'll own them at the end. But we're able to reallocate some of those pieces so that we can do that and make sure that we are not loss in compliance. We're also not supporting the old analog system any longer either. So again, we looked at the cost benefit of waiting, or should we wait till everything truly gets shut down? But obviously, we're able to do this, and we're able to do it by just reallocating some pieces in our fuel and supplies, and obviously some of the savings that came out of the restructuring. So again, you won't see that. You're not going to be like, oh my God, these are amazing radios right now. But again, they'll work. So that's good. Maximization evaluation of FTE faculty. Again, that's kind of a basic thing we always do. We look at our faculty. That might sound more middle school-like, but do we have enough faculty and full capacity faculty that we can run a student-centered schedule? Once again, it's been one of my priorities as a superintendent that we don't have middle school students that are done with their day, akin to a high school senior, done at 1 o'clock. We're not running 2 study halls or a study hall and a free period or a double this. So we're really trying to maximize our schedule. So just because we're small, we're not cheapening the middle school experience for our students. They have options for electives in the technology areas, the arts, honors classes, but of course we're maximizing our staff to have and their FTEs to be a full student-centered schedule. So again, it's about the students and not about the staff. And I think we've done a very good job at having multiple tracks this year and many more. Constant pursuit of revenue opportunities, again, tuition-based students. Part of our close that gap was, I did recall, as I mentioned last time, all 11 students from Little Red, the current first grade class, have declared they will be attending here. So actually, the entire Little Red class will be attending GD, so not one student will be attending Able Park. So again, that's a huge income for us because, again, we usually account on 5 or 6. So having that 11 students was a nice bump in that $65,000 piece. Now, we don't account for every student in that, but as you can imagine, 5 or 6 versus 11, that's a big savings, or that's a big gain for us by having that. So a testament to our program, hence why all these other pieces that are here are crucial as well. They're not going to want to keep coming here if we don't have an awesome program. So that's why we have to maintain that program and the stamina and the maintenance of what we do. And of course, reduction of administrative conference funds. So one of the pieces that we did do was we reduced, and this might not sound like a major piece, but to kind of close that gap even more, my line item for conferences, the principal's line item was eliminated for conferences, and also the board line item we did reduce. There is a board line for conferences. What we do is that's there in case the board did want to go to one of the board NISPA retreats. And again, that's a piece that a lot of boards do, but that can be very expensive. You can imagine 5 board members, train tickets, mileage, hotels, things like that. So again, we put a little bit in there in case one of us went to go to present, but that's a piece that we felt was, again, better in the students' hands than having it just sitting in a line item. So that was reduced, and also we're not paying for our policy review service any longer, so we were able to reduce that down. Again, we still have to pay for our membership in NISBA, but that does have quite a hefty price tag. But again, we kept that kind of tighter rather than we kept it open when we were doing the policy review. And also we realized we're not people that are leaving the building, going to conferences a lot, or I should say, not going to expensive opportunities, and again, at the expense of kids, that's not something we want to do. So that line item that was there, we were able to trim a few thousand to kind of really cinch that gap and close that gap. And of course, restructuring of CSE, CPSE, clerical. We did that earlier in the year, but as you know, we had a person retire, so we were able to replace that with somebody who currently serves also in 2 capacities. They work in the main, in the special ed office, but also as a lunch recess aide. That position's worked out wonderfully. That split's worked out wonderfully. So that's also prevented the hiring of a new civil service title, and it's worked out well for the position. So again, it's worked out great for the position, for the person as well, and it's been a savings to us. So again, when someone left, we had analyzed rather than just replacing with exactly what was there, and that did result in an overall savings for us. So there'll be 4 propositions on this year's budget, and the first one will be, of course, to approve the 9797480 budget, which I presented to you in those kind of 3 areas, and that will be the 2.52% levy. Now here's where the long-term excitement kind of comes into. Bus proposition number 2. This one's actually, I think these get really exciting too, you'll see. So we have the budget, but then you'll see, this is our bus proposition. This is for 2 bus purchases, one 66 passenger, one 28 passenger. I don't mean to sound very excited, but you'll notice that 160, that little number, that we do this every year, we phase 2 buses out, we trade them in, because again, it becomes, as many argue, why do you buy new buses? You barely use them, they're only 4-mile radius. But to repair a bus is usually twice as much to buy a new bus when it gets to a certain age. That's a DOT thing, that's not a wine and skill thing. New York State bus rules are very strict, so it's not a matter of, well, you wouldn't run a bus like you run your car. Once it's a certain point, it is time to trade it in. However, we were able to lock in, now again, we didn't put money down, but lock into current 2018 model year buses that are actually located right now in Indiana. They've not been used. They still have the plastic on them, or paper, whatever they're wrapped in. The point is they're not used, but they are locked in, so that number is lower than last year, but they are brand new, and the warranty will start when we purchase those buses. So they're brand new buses, 18 model year. They do not differ, but that number is lower. Again, that comes out of the balance at the end of the school year. We don't borrow for those. We get aid on those, about 65%, but the price is lower. So that's used at the end of the school year when we have leftover money in our account before that, what we call June 30th funds, before we go into the new budget year. But last year that number was about 166, I believe, so it actually went down a little bit because we were able to lock into claiming 2 of those buses that were kind of in the leftover model year. But again, the warranty will be from this point forward, so it's not a reduced warranty. So again, that's an exciting savings. Again, but it's not a cost to the taxpayer as well, because we're not borrowing. It's coming out of leftover funds at the end of the school year. But proposition number 3, though, is our capital reserve. So again, as you know, we just completed a capital project, but we want to always think about moving forward. So actually, while our recent capital reserve expires, we actually would like to ask voter permission to renew. Then they expire. When the funds expire, you have to spend them somewhere else, or you have to re-up. So since our capital project just finished and our funds expired, we want to renew that for the next 10 years. And basically, so that allows us to put money away towards our next building project. So again, right now we did have money left over in our capital project, about $300,000. We want to renew that so that that money doesn't get reallocated somewhere else, so that we have reserves. So in that capital reserve, that might be a project we do 5 years, 10 years from now, but we want to have a nice nest egg so that if we do that project, we have something just like we did last project. The more you pay down on a project, the less you borrow, the more aid you get. So it's that cycle that we keep doing, and that's a good thing for us. So since that fund is expiring, we just want authorization to renew it and keep that money in the account. So that's more of a minutia thing, but the money's there. We just need permission to renew it for the next 10 years, and then allow us also to add to that at the end of June 30th, anything that's left over. And of course, number 4 is our repair reserve. You authorized this actually back in August. Right now, the maximum, is $250,000, but we're basically asking your permission, the voter permission, to set up a repair reserve. Right now, we have about $100,000 earmarked from last year to put in that reserve, and that's so that, again, when things happen like a boiler breaks, a hot water tank breaks, we're not pulling from the general fund and reducing something. We could go to our repair reserve and very easily access that. And that also can include repairs to the current physical plant. So this summer, if we looked at our plan and we decided we wanted to do a tile floor in a room that maybe couldn't get done with the project, paving of the road, remember that lots of things had to be taken out of the project as a cost, we can use the repair reserve to do those things. Or again, if a set of windows has to be put in because something's leaking, we can ask the board for permission to use that rather than going into our general fund and taking that away from something we spend on students. So that's basically authorizing the voter. The voter is authorizing us to do what you authorized back in August. And right now we have money earmarked for that. So again, if you see the very excitement of the long term, we have, we're thinking also 10 years down the line that we have money put away for our next project, and also should that rainy day thing happen, we're set and we're not ever taking away from kids. So those are our 4 propositions. Again, so 2 reflects savings. Budget proposition for buses reflects, again, spending leftover June 30th funds, and of course proposition number 1 will be our traditional budget proposition. So next steps, official budget adoption. If this works for you, any questions of course to ask would be tonight, if that works for you. Budget hearing will be Monday, May 13th. That's when we have to do an official budget hearing, which again will be I'll re-present this presentation for any member that would like to come out of the community to hear that. That is an official requirement. The newsletter is sent approximately May 15th, so Mr. McCord, our communications person, will take this budget, synthesize the information I've given you, and send that out to the voter via mail. That is a requirement by law, so that they receive a paper copy. And the budget vote is May 21st, noon to 9, in classroom number 247, which is the upstairs room here, the upstairs music room. And that's the universal rate for the state. So, lots of information, lots of good things.
For the budget newsletter to go out?
It's late, but we've also found that if it goes out too soon, because it has to go out after the budget hearing too.
Right.
So it's kind of like it's ready to go. It's just we pretty much have it ready to go. The idea being that it's in the hands by May 15th, and the idea being that it's fresh so the person votes if they received it, But it's ready to go. I mean, literally, it's at the post office, and we just are waiting for the 13th to happen. But we think it could be in people's hands by the 15th if it went out the 14th. Good question.
I have 2 questions.
Please.
On the pre-K, I agree with having 1 classroom, totally. But are we under any legal obligation to accept more? I mean, like K through 8, we can't turn kids away. Can we legally do that?
Yes,
okay.
because pre-K was...
Because it's not universal pre-K?
Exactly.
Okay.
Great question. Again, now had we received grant funding, which we did apply for back in November, we did not receive, yes, we would certainly be obligated to accommodate. Okay. But since this is almost, I hate to say it, like an elective program that we're offering to run, it's also something that, this would be horrible, if you had to cut a program, you could legally cut, ethically might be different, but you could legally cut without being in, initially. Now, versus like you said, you couldn't cut a kindergarten and say we're closed. Sorry, you know.
Right.
Great question.
Just want to be sure there wasn't any repercussions to that. And on the teaching assistants, is it 1 to grade level 3 and 1 to grade level 5, or is it one that covers both grade 3 and 5?
It's one that covers one person that covers both, and we found that through scheduling, for example, right now they're doing grades 2 and 4. They're able to, because when one grade level is at special, that grade level is perhaps in reading or math, or vice versa. So the one person is able to cover both areas.
And it meets the needs that are
It does.
needed? Okay.
Because again, there's a lot of times where you wouldn't necessarily need, in some rooms actually I will say, which shows our great quality teaching staff, there's times where there's almost adult saturation where there's times where you could have an adult and it's listed between, because we're also supplementing with remedial math, reading, speech, special ed. So there's times that 6th adult might be overkill, where that's a great time for them to go to another classroom. And then when that room gets saturated with all those remedial services, that person jumps over. So it kind of works out well without having too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
Okay.
And the schedule's very much interlocked, so when one's on lunch, one's at special, it flows very nicely. Great question.
Thank you.
There's a lot of adults in and out of those rooms, I can tell you that.
It is, and I think we have a nice for 4th to 2nd grade with that person that we're talking about. If 2nd grade needs them at a time for the person, we just, on either side, I think we're pretty flexible. If they're doing a special project, or if we need that person, we kind of just communicate, which is nice too.
Just want to be sure there was enough support there or whatever. Okay.
And Kate, thank you for saying that too. And that, as you can imagine, that support in 4th will travel with 5th, and obviously the support in 2nd will travel with 3rd. So those are two areas. 5th, Kate's group being probably the most adults, and then of course, then followed by probably the current 2nd grade group. There's a lot of traffic, as you said, E&L support, things like that. Questions from the public audience?
Good job.
It's been very exciting, but again, I just can't say enough. It's very exciting to put a budget to you that we know is sustainable and very exciting to deliver. And also, Darcy, I'm sorry, I'm pointing to you for a question.
That's okay.
Part of the budget we built in was, as you know, we're graduating 30 kids next year. We have close to 50. Remember, those 50 kids have to go to high school next year, and we have to pay for that. So that's one piece we built in the budget too, because it sounds like, oh, it's this year, it's only 30-something kids, but next year 50 of those kids need to, or more, depending on who was in the summer, they need to have their option of high school choice, and we are ready for that as well. So this budget, while it's not for this year, reflects that when that increase goes up, we're not coming back to you saying, oh my God, we didn't see this coming. How could we not? We know it's there. And then when the current 4th grade goes to high school, we need to be ready for that too, and we will be. So. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you, Bill.
This would be impossible without Bell.
You said a couple building district-wide things you want to talk about?
Sure. They're not as exciting as budget, but I'll try to keep pace here. So just a couple little things. So I mentioned pre-K loosely. Pre-K, we did have our final date was April 8th. So again, I feel comfortable. We have one class right now. So we sent our letters out that congratulated those families in being accepted into pre-K. And of course, inviting them to May 22nd, which is the parent night for, where they'll do the registration. They'll meet the teacher. This year they'll be able to actually see the room. Last year, the room was still under construction. And also, as I mentioned before to the board, perhaps loosely, the pre-K staff would like to do a screening of the pre-K students. They didn't have time to do it last year, but they'd like to do a screening akin to what we do for kindergarten, and they will be setting it up with both day and evening appointments so families can get their students there. So that's very exciting. So of course, we'll update you as we get closer to that. Our grant audit, as you might recall, this is something we were being audited for our Title 1 through 4 grants by the state. I did complete a conference call yesterday, and we're pretty much 99% compliant. We have a couple more things just to kind of document that we're there. That should be wrapped up by right after break. They'll be coming out to do a quick visit. And her quote was, I will stop in and I'll be out in 20 minutes. So I feel very good that we're there, and that it covers us for another 3 to 5 years. And also, again, it shows our diligent bookkeeping that these are federal grants. So, of course, every dollar is accounted for, every agenda, every piece of paper is looked at. And, of course, we submitted those pieces in a timely fashion. And the state could not have been more cordial in working with us, but I think that was also attributed to the way we keep our records. So, again, that's a nice job for the district. And it could not be more perfect to have our 2 8th grade advisors in the audience. So besides some recent field trips, 6th grade going to the Natural History Museum, our next big trip is our 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., where we'll be setting sail on Tuesday. But one thing I'd like to point out, and board, I'd like to give you a copy, is this is actually more Therese and Kaylin's work, but this reflects a couple things. One is some additions we made. So there's the parent packets. This is a copy. You'll see in the back, we made this a very student-centered schedule. As you know, that was one of the board goals here, was to make the trip and be responsive to student needs. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Oh, no, yes. Sorry. So this is the letter that went home.
I just want to make sure I was getting on.
Oh, I didn't mean. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. So Keith has something that he'll share.
Whether you like it or not.
Thanks for sharing. So the first is just a packet that was made by our advisors. It's kind of the information about the pack, but you'll see the agendas on the back, which I think is very exciting because it's not just your mimeograph copy, but it reflects moving things around, visiting monuments at certain dates, adding some more hands-on things, some more communal meals, all the things we heard from families and students. But also, if I may credit Mrs. Madelone, you'll see that the shared copy is a scavenger hunt. We're actually adding a scavenger hunt this year with prizes. And Ms. Madelone, I don't know if you guys would like to speak on this, but again, this kind of reflects the DC 2.0, and so I'll turn it over to our advisors if they want to add anything. But really, changing the trip's itinerary and the scavenger hunt is a new addition that is really kind of cool. So.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, the first couple things that I heard coming into this were some complaints that, certain places that we went, the kids would just kind of fly through and be ready to leave after 5 minutes. And I said, well, I don't know, a couple of those places are important places. How can we kind of engage them and get them to enjoy it more and maybe have an incentive to go learn something in there? So that's where I came up with the scavenger hunt idea. So each place they'll be required to search out something or answer a question, and there are different point values, and at the end of each day we'll tally up their points and give them a prize. And we're going to do kind of a souvenir as the grand prize at the end for whoever makes the most points. So I think we're going to ask our guide for some tiebreaker questions, like when you're listening, and catch and see if they can catch the answers. So I think it'll make it more fun. They kind of groaned when they heard about it, but I think they'll see that it's actually fun to have a mission to go on and stuff like that. So
it's also nice, if I may say, too, to have a purpose. So again, it's enough work, but it's not cumbersome where it's seen as burdensome, but it has a purpose.
We're going to make teams. Yeah. No, probably not. I don't know. I think it might be different. I have to
I just got to say hats off to you for doing this trip in a month till birth time.
She's like,
God bless you.
I always intended to go. Doctor said it was okay, so.
Get your rest.
We have the whole break after that to get back.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true.
Very long.
It's going to be exciting.
Very cool. Thank you.
And Therese, hats off to you, too, for being our master accountant. And again, Therese puts together all the logistics. So as you can see, that's set from the agenda to the letter. So again, it's been a great pairing of two advisors.
And with your help.
Thank you. So we'll be leaving Tuesday. We'll return Thursday. But again, you'll be hopefully following our Twitter to see pictures by the minute. And of course, we'll keep you updated. But it'll be exciting.
It is very exciting.
1.3, principal's report. I don't see the principal. Did she send you with any info?
She did not. She had another commitment this evening, but I pretty much gave the summary. As you heard, that's why I had the coordinators update. Testing's been the lion's share of kind of our occupation, and I think you heard some of that.
Okay. 2.4, PTA, SEPTA. PTA, something a little boring. I can go over it, or you can go over it.
I'll go over it. There's nothing for SEPTA, so let's knock that off. And then I just think it's so exciting that Ms. Cronin's class submitted a poster to the New York State PTA. It was a National Road Safety Foundation Defeat Distractions traffic safety poster contest, and they won 3rd prize, and so PTA got $500.
And it was from last year's class.
Oh, it was last year's
It was
class?
last year's class that we did it at the end of the year. I think it was 17 each. I think.
Yes.
'Cause I know this year we didn't
Very
do
cool.
that yet.
Okay, so maybe it's coming.
Yes, I know we did. It was last
Oh.
year's that we did, but I can't figure out whose poster that is. So I'll have to try to figure that out for tomorrow. I feel like it was one of the boys. Yeah, it was like, don't.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah,
It
so
looks- it's
anyway.
very boyish.
Just
It's
that's
video
really
games
fun.
are saving a life. I'm going to guess a boy.
Yeah.
Winning a video game or saving your life, right? They have a meeting on Monday, 5/13. I think. Oh, they're going to publish who the nominations are for their elected people who they can vote on president membership for the board. And then teacher appreciation luncheon and McDonald's night are happening in May.
Okay. Thank you. 3.0, appointments and authorizations. The real meat of the agenda. We're going to 3.1 to 3.14 as a consent agenda, unless anybody has any objections. No? Okay. Here we go. Buckle up. 3.1, approve CSE, CPSC recommendations as per attached. 3.2, approve the 2019-2020 Wine and Skill Union Free School District calendar. 3.3, approve the 2019-20 Board of Ed meeting schedule. 3.4, approve Caitlin Matalone, third grade teacher, for a paid leave of absence for child rearing starting on or around May 17, 2019, returning to the start of the 2019-20 school year. 3.5, approve Heather Wetruba at step 1 prorated for the child rearing leave of Mrs. Matalone starting on or around May 17th to June 27, 2019 as per the WTA contract. 3.6, appoint Dion Sersney to the 6-month probationary position of custodial worker as approved through Rensselaer County Civil Service effective 4/1/19 at $16.50 per hour. Approve Coley Deguire as substitute custodian at $12.50 per hour. Teacher's aide non-certified teacher at $80 per day. Kitchen/recess aide and kitchen helper at $11.10 per hour. 3.8, approve Michael Bornt for a permanent teacher's aide position effective May 7th, 2019, ending the 6-month probationary period. 3.9, consideration for approval to adopt the presentation to voters of the district as Proposition 1, the 2019-20 budget as recommended by administration as follows. Shall the Board of Education of the Wine and Skill Union Free School District, Rensselaer County, New York, be authorized to expend the total of $9,797,480 during the school year 2019-2020 and to levy the necessary tax therefore. 3.10, consideration for approval to adopt for presentation to the voters of the district as Proposition Number 2, the 2019-20 bus proposal as recommended by administration as follows. Shall the Board of Education of the Wine and Skill Union Free School District, Rensselaer County, New York, be authorized to 1, acquire 2 school buses at a maximum aggregate cost of $160,437, and 2, expend such sum or so much thereof as shall be necessary, and 3, shall be paid from the current appropriation. 3.11, consideration for approval to adopt for presentation to the voters of the district as Proposition Number 3. Shall it be resolved that the Board of Education of the Wine and Skill Union Free School District be authorized and directed to establish a new capital reserve fund in accordance with provisions of Section 3651 of the Education Law, which shall be used for future building projects, improvements, and renovations. The ultimate amount of such funds shall be $2,500,000 plus interest earnings thereupon. The probable term shall be 10 years, and the source of its funds shall be from unappropriated balances in the district's general fund in current and future years. 3.12, consideration for approval to adopt for presentation to the voters of the district as Proposition Number 4. Shall it be resolved that the Board of Ed of the Wine and Skill Union Free School District be authorized and directed to fund the repair reserve fund that was established by the Board of Education on August 23, 2018. The ultimate amount of such fund shall be $250,000. The source of its fund shall be from unappropriated balance in the district's general fund in current and future years. I need a drink. 3.13. Whereas the Board of Education of the Wine and Skill Union Free School District, Rensselaer County, New York, has called an annual school board election and budget vote of qualified voters of the said school district to be held on the 21st day of May, 2019, and whereas it is now desired to provide for the appointment of inspectors for said annual school board election and budget vote. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Wine and Skill Union Free School District, Rensselaer County, New York, as follows. Section 1. Mary Ellen Agrazano, a duly qualified voter of said district, is hereby appointed as the permanent chairman of the annual school board election and budget vote referred to in preambles hereof. Section 2. The following named qualified voters of said school district are hereby appointed to act as inspectors of election of said annual school board election and budget vote, so that it shall be at least 2 inspectors for each voting machine to be used thereat. Section 3. Mary Rose Ryan is hereby designated as Chief Election Inspector. Section 4. The following named qualified voters of said school district are hereby appointed as assistant clerks of said annual school board election and budget vote. Sue Subeck and Kristen Abbas. Section 5. Each inspector of election and assistant clerk appointed for said annual school board election and budget vote, as herein provided, shall be entitled to compensation at the rate of Chief Election Inspector $11.50 per hour, and assistant clerks $11.25 per hour for each day actually and necessarily spent on the duties of his office. The clerk of said school district is hereby authorized and directed to give written notice of appointment to the persons herein respectively appointed as permanent chairman, inspectors of election, and assistant clerks for said special district meeting. Section 6. This resolution shall take effect immediately. And 3.14, second readings and approval of the following policy. Policy number 1900, Parent and Family Engagement, Exhibit 1900 E1, Title I, Parent and Family Engagement, School Level Approach, and Exhibit 1900 E2, Student Academic Achievement, School Parent Compact. Need somebody to make a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? You want to talk about any particular?
Sure, just to kind of clarify within that, you'll notice that obviously the consent included the approval of Mrs. Malone's leave of absence for basically the end of the school year, and Heather Wetroba, who's currently our teacher assistant, so the 1.0 teacher assistant will be actually taking over that role. She interviewed for the position, has done a great job. She knows those kids, so it'll be a great transition for those 25 to 30 days that is. And we'll also be replacing Heather's job with a long-term substitute from our substitute pool. So again, Heather will do have Kaylin's class and see that class at the end, and then we'll have someone from our substitute take over Heather's position, and then at the end of the school year, everything returns back to the way it was. Also, you see on there the permanent appointment of Dion Zerny, who is our night custodian. You might have seen him around. He's been kind of subbing. So actually, he's been on the job, kind of an interview and training. He's been a very fantastic addition to our team. You might see him around tonight. You might stop in to say hello, actually, just so that we can put a face to a name. So he's there as well to be a permanent replacement for our loss of our last custodian. And everything else there you'll see is pretty much the consent piece as well. Also, the second readings, as you know, that's just for that policy. That also had to do with our Title I through 4 grant. We had to make sure we re-adopted that policy. We had one on file that pretty much said the same thing, but they had recommended / said is required to use the new NISBA adoption. Kathy had sent some grammatical pieces that really didn't affect the integrity of the piece. It just was grammatical. For the record, that was not our work. That was NISBA's original draft that had those errors. That was not our work. So but there were some errors.
I had a couple more on this that either I missed or whatever, but it doesn't affect content.
Excellent.
And I'm happy to see that Mr. Bourne will be staying. Kids love him.
Okay.
Mrs. Castle? Mrs. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Hirakawa?
Yes.
Mr. Lannisey?
Yes.
Mrs. Mack?
Yes.
In 2 weeks for Christmas vacation next year.
Yes.
2 full weeks.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. The calendar was on there. Yes, so you'll see the calendar. That's 2 full weeks. This calendar kind of captures pretty much the essence of what our local districts are doing, because remember, we do run buses to 5 schools, so it captures that. You will notice that we do have a half day on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, but that's because that 2 full weeks, coupled with obviously the other breaks, and obviously starting after Labor Day, we had to have some give back. You'll see some schools that were in session Good Friday, some were not, so we chose the half day for Thanksgiving rather than being in session Good Friday as our counterparts are. We thought that was a better match for families and also for student attendance as well. So.
I don't know if other districts have adopted their calendars yet, but do you know the high schools that we tuition to? Are they planning on a similar?
Yes, actually, we're one of the last to adopt for that reason. We kind of wait to see. So not everyone has the 2 full weeks for the holiday break, I'm sorry, but I believe all but East Greenbush does. East Greenbush does not have that, but on the same token, members, they have different contracts too. Our contract is very relegated by the number of days that can be worked. We also build in 5 give-back days. Some schools build in 3, some don't build in any at all. But yes, this kind of captures 99%, the breaks are the same. The vacation starts with the Easter holiday and ends. It's just that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and of course, the starting on a Thursday maybe instead of a Wednesday, that kind of thing. But I think we're pretty much in
I
the
think
same.
most of the Capital Region BOCE schools have the 2 weeks for.
Correct.
Because I know Chris said Shen does.
Yes.
Well, okay.
So we kind of held back. We're always one of the last because we wait for Cap Region BOCES and Questar to kind of come to some sort of general template, and then we kind of go from there.
Yes, I remember last year they couldn't quite get it together.
Yeah, we did about 5 drafts, but we got this time. I think we're good with
I
one.
feel like we voted on it several times.
We did, yes. Just finally concluded this year.
We've already voted on everything.
Yep.
So 4.0 informational. 4.1, our budget hearing, as Dr. Reardon already said, May 13th, 2019 at 7 p.m. That same night, we'll have meet the candidates for everybody who has submitted petitions to be on the board for the next term. That'll also be same bat time, same bat channel. 4.3, regular Board of Ed meeting, May 16th, 2019 at 7 p.m. 4.4, annual school board election and budget vote, May 21st, 2019. That'll be from noon to 9 p.m. And as Dr. Reardon said, it'll be in the music room. And 4.5, opportunity for the public to be heard. Has anybody signed up?
We have nobody.
Okay. Last chance for anybody in the audience?
Before,
Oh, sorry, one piece.
Sure.
Actually, this is my fault. I might have communicated different times. Sharon, the BOCES budget vote is this next Tuesday?
7:50.
7:50. I'm sorry. So I think I can. BOCES budget vote, the required vote on next Tuesday is 7:50.
Okay.
I might have put 7:30 in my memo, so I apologize. So 7:50
Yep.
to 7:51. That should be a quick.
I don't know if I'll be able to make it. I will let you know.
Gotcha.
In enough time.
Okay. So because school will be in session, we should go to the main office, sign in, go
At
to the business.
7:50?
7:50 you should be okay.
The kids won't be here yet.
Oh, yeah, they don't start till
Right.
8.
And you should be.
Yep. The side door will be open and
Okay. Okay, good. Glad I asked.
yeah.
And you just need 3 for that.
Yeah. Were you going to say something?
Not it.
No.
No. Audience?
No.
You say nodded.
I did.
No? Okay.
Eric better be here.
Yeah, really. Unless he's off to Hawaii or Florida or somewhere.
Okay, I don't think we have any need for executive session.
I'm good.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion
Second.
to adjourn. Second.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against?